All right, what's up, everybody? I'm CP Lepage. I created FullStacked, and today I'm just going to showcase you what's the project about. So basically, it's a build tool to create web apps with only TypeScript. It uses React and Express, two very popular libraries, frameworks, and the idea is to replace all your dependency into one. So I just showed you quickly the docs, the site, and we're going to follow the getting started. Basically, today we're going to create a to-do app from scratch and all the way through testing and then deploying at the end. So as the getting started explains, I just init my npm project and then I installed FullStack there. All right, so now we're ready. I'm just going to show you a bit of the setup. As you can see, there's node module and package.json like any node project. And I just created the FullStacked starter app. There's more reference in the documentation, so you can always check that out if you're wondering what's the purpose of each of those files. So I'm using WebStorm for my IDE. I love it a lot. So we're going to use this today, and now I'm just setting up my workspace. And there we go. And there you go. That's the test file that is supposed to work straight out of the box. So we'll just show you that. Okay, so just need to point where Mocha is. You could install it like in the global and never have to do that, but you can do it per project. I prefer that kind of way. So the integration did work, and then the end-to-end test is also working, so we're good. Everything works fine. So this is the index.tsx, the entry point for our web app, and this is the server.ts, the entry point for our server. So the getting started then explains that you can start the watcher and just start developing from there. So that's what we're doing. So as you can see, the app is running on your local host at port 8000. And the default app has this landing page and a hello world endpoint just to get you started. It helps a little. So since today we're doing a to-do app, we're going to start with the backend and just create the CRUD, the create, read, update, and delete of our to-dos. So for the post and the put, we're going to use the JSON parser. If you ever use the body parser, but it's built in Express now, so you don't need to install anything else. So we're not going to use a database for the sake of simplicity, actually. So we're just going to save it in a map. So here, as you can see, I created a map, the number to a to-do, so the ID, the to-do ID, to actual data. And I just really want to point out how we're creating a type. Like for any TypeScript project, we create types to keep everything organized. But what's nice to have only TypeScript as our only language throughout the whole project is that we're going to reuse that type for our front end and also our tests. So this is very nice. You don't need to translate it. You don't need to figure out if everything is matching through different languages. It's one language for the whole stack. That's why I call the project FullStacked. So right here I'm creating the post, so the create. I'm just going to set ID there and save the to-do. Then the update, which is pretty much the same thing, but we're just going to overwrite because we're just trying to do an example, not an actual complete application. And finally, the delete. So here we go. So our backend are done, and we're just going to create tests to make sure everything is working as expected. And afterwards, we're going to go through the front end. But since our backend is tested, we should have there shouldn't be any surprises. Oh, as we can see, we're having an error here because I forgot to stop the watcher. And I just realized that I don't receive an array from my get because I forgot that a map gets translated to an object when you hit the toJSON. So I just fixed it because we want an array of to-dos on the get. And as you can see here, I have to create a fake to-do for the test and see how I imported our to-do type again. And this is going to help a lot to create our object. See that red underline is staying there until I actually create a valid to-do. So since we got this done, now we can continue with our tests. So this is the added to-do test. Just gonna make sure that we have a length of 1 after adding one, and making sure it's actually the same to-do that we just post. And as you can see with WebStorm, you can always just press that little play button. This is super efficient. You don't need to run any command line or stuff like that. Really love that setup. That's what I want to push on this kind of workflow, because it's efficient and it is fun too. So now we're just creating our test for the update. So we're just going to flip that check flag and make sure it actually updated in our server. All right, this test also works. The last one we need is the delete. So we're going to check the length before we call the delete route. And we're going to call it again afterwards to see if the length did change. And there you go, the test passes. So we're going to run the whole bunch of tests and everything works here. So we're good to start the front end now. Now our server is fine. We know it's going to work. We have our 4 endpoints. So let's just implement a little interface that interacts with our server. So as you can see, I just restarted the watcher, and I'm just going to show you how it just updates anytime a file gets updated. You might see the update here a bit better. I'll just change this to a title, and there you go, to a header, sorry. So I'm gonna make it simple. I'm just gonna create a stateful component here for the to-do list. So just have to import the component from React. And as I stated, everything comes with FullStack. As you can see, I never installed React, I never installed Express, I never installed any types. It's all in FullStack. You don't need to worry about anything else. So as you can see, I reused my to-do type, which is super nice because I know how to expect the types, the data, sorry, and the IDE will help me a lot when I create my interface. As you can see, it knows that a to-do has a checked attribute, a title attribute, and an ID, which I'll use later on. So I just created my render to-do list. So in my main render function, I'm going to render this and a little form to add a new to-do here. There we go. So we're going to put this back on our main web app rendering, and as you can see, the form appeared. We don't have any to-dos yet because we didn't post anything. So we're going to create our onSubmit function on our form, and basically we're going to post our data to our server, and this is going to allow us to add to-dos. Okay. Oh yeah, definitely we need to get our title from the input. We're just going to create a little React reference and get it from there. The ID doesn't matter because we generated from the backend. We could have put in question mark to that attribute, but I prefer just to set it as 0 and force to put something. Oh, and after we add it, we're going to reload our to-do list. So here's the method that's going to allow us to do that. We're just going to reset the state with the new fetched to-dos from the backend. As you can see, it works. Didn't have to refresh my page or anything. Just get updated as soon as we save any, or as as soon as any file changes. And then our update is going to be when we check them. As you can see, this works too. And finally, oh yeah, when the component mounts for the first time, we're going to load our to-dos, or else we're going to have nothing, right? And finally, the delete to remove any of them. And just for a little bit of styling, we're going to add a line through on our to-do. It just looks better, right? So there we go. So our full interface is already done. It was quite easy because we had our backend set up and tested, so we ran into no surprises. And then we're just gonna put a little test on the front end. It's nothing intense. We should probably like test the actual form, but for the sake of time, I'll just skip that. Then I'll show you the test command line for FullStacked. It does the same as I was using with WebStorm, but if you're using another IDE or just your terminal, you can still use it. There's always the headless flag, so you won't see that Chrome pop all the time, and you can use the coverage flag too if you want to generate your code coverage, which is very nice. I'll just show you the HTML rendered with this. This is super good. If you're collaborating, well, if anyone does a pull request or a merge request, well, you can see if their new code is actually covered or not. It's a very excellent feature, but just don't use the flag if you don't care about it. So we're at that point where our app is built and is tested, so it's time for the deployment. And we'll deploy on an Amazon Lightsail instance. So I'll just create a basic Amazon Lightsail instance, the most basic one. And I'm going to create a static IP just to make sure we don't change, the IP doesn't change, because we're going to point a domain to it, right? We'll just wait for this to be ready, up and running, and there we go. We're just going to attach our static IP. Here you go. So that's our host IP, our remote host IP, and we'll just need our private key so we can SSH to it. So there is a command line to deploy from your FullStacked project, and I'm just going to show you how to set it up. Right now I'm just trying to get that long file name for the private key. Well, the SSH key, sorry. Okay, so as you can see, it's there. And now I'm starting to type the deploy command. So our host is that static IP. And then our user is going to be ec2-user. Our private key file, so just point to that file. It's going to be at my downloads with that long name I copied once and then copied again. And finally, the app we have to define the app directory in the server where we want to push the files. So it's going to be at our home, well, at our user's root directory. So it just have to say, yeah, that's our package at JSON. Now, are we ready to deploy? Yes. Now it detected that Docker isn't installed on our remote host, so it's going to take care of that. And there we go. Now it's ready. It built the app in production mode, sent the dist files, and it's booting the app with Docker. More specifically, it uses Docker Compose. And there we go. Let's see if it works. Yeah. So our app is now on the internet and is actually working, which is nice. So as you can see, it's not secure, it's not using HTTPS, so I'm just going to show you how to set it up. So first thing first, we have to add the HTTPS rule in Amazon Lightsail. There we go. If you're using like a Santa server, it's similar to like the firewalld kind of command we have to put. And then in my DNS management, I'm just going to put an A record that points to that IP, to our static IP. So there we go. And now it's fully secured. It's on the HTTPS, and our app is fully working. And I'll leave it there if you want to test it out, so feel free. I hope you enjoyed this quick video, and hopefully you got interested in FullStacked. So I'll put all the links in the description for the GitHub and other references. So feel free to reach out. Feel free to make pull requests or submit issues if you run into any troubles. And thanks for watching. See ya.